much.
The honourable member for Yorkton Melville will have 7 minutes remaining in her time when the House next gets back to debate on the question. But now we're going to statements by members. Déclaration de député. L'honorable député.
Honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, when justice is made to stumble into cold, unheated homes at 5 o'clock in the morning, when the reasons of state start to march at 5 o'clock in the morning, some people have scars at 5 o'clock in the morning. There are some who have started to shiver at 5 o'clock in the morning. That is what Gérald Godin wrote about the dark night of October 16th, 1970, where Pierre Elliott Trudeau imposed war measures and arrested 500 innocent people in front of their families. People like Gérald Godin, a humanist and a symbol of open and modern Quebec, and people like Pauline Julien, Gaston Miron. Can you imagine? It's as if he were to arrest Leonard Cohen. Michel Chartrand, the defender of widows and orphans, was imprisoned for 4 months. 500 people were imprisoned without any reason for having loved their own people. I remember October 1970.
Member for Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize St. Thomas More Catholic Secondary School in my riding's We Scare Hunger campaign. We Scare Hunger is an amazing initiative where students from St. Thomas More, as well as students from across the city, will be collecting canned goods tonight for the local neighbor-to-neighbor food bank. We Scare Hunger is an initiative that started over 18 years ago with 20 students from St. Thomas More and now has grown into one of the largest initiatives led by students in the country. Tonight, over 850 students from St. Thomas More alone will be out knocking on doors in order to help those most in need. This year's ambitious goal, 100,000 pounds of canned goods.
Bravo.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to congratulate the students and staff at STM as well as all the high schools across my ambitious city of Hamilton as they carry out this fantastic initiative. I believe that STM will reach their goal in raising 100,000 pounds of canned goods tonight and indeed scare hunger. Go Knights, go!
Bravo.
The honourable member for Peace River Westlaw.
Mr. Speaker, mass literacy and the separation of church and state are both products of the Great Reformation. In fact, it is impossible to understand modern history without an understanding of the impact of the Reformation. 500 years ago today, a young man named Martin Luther nailed 95 theses to the church door at Wittenberg, Germany. This set off a series of events that changed the spiritual, theological, and political trajectory of the Western world. Critical to the Reformation was the conviction that nothing could compel an individual to violate their conscience. Central to the Reformation are the 5 solas of salvation. Sola Scriptura, by Scripture alone. Sola Fide, by faith alone. Sola Gratias, by grace alone. Sola Christus, Christ alone. Sola Deo Gloria, to the glory of God alone. Sola Scriptura led to the improvement of literacy rates, which came from the idea that everyone should be able to read the Bible. It resulted in the translation of the Bible into nearly every language around the globe. Today we commemorate 500 years of Reformation and proclaim Sola Deo Gloria. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Niwako makuntik tanse, numayaya tane, awapam tikuk. Some politicians have skeletons, others bodies. Today is a very special, scary day. Today is Halloween, but it's also the birthday of my son, Jacob Joseph Willett. He is 11 years old today. Jacob, I miss you very much. I love you also. I'm very sorry that I'm often absent. But your mother and I are always thinking of you. Please continue working hard, smiling, helping others, keeping a positive attitude, giving everything you have to the task at hand. Remember that we love you, and also your brothers and sisters, Xavier Gabriel, Edward Riel, Julian James, and Abigail Rose. Also, Mr. Speaker, congratulations to the people who have made Winnipeg a safe place in our inner city to trick-or-treat on Halloween. Organizations like Mama Way, Ayo, and Meet Me at the Bell Tower have made an incredible difference in our inner city. Thank you to Michael Champagne, Chris Clacchio, Grace Scott, Samuel Trout, Mark Wright, Mary Jane Daniels, Fred Flett, Shirley Bear, Wayne Roberts, Chickadee Richards. You are our heroes. You are Winnipeg.
Honourable member for Cowichan Malahat Langford.
In early September, my wife was admitted to hospital due to significant and serious concerns with her pregnancy. For the next 6 weeks, the hospital became a second home to our family. This was a difficult and scary time, but we made it through because the dedication, love, and compassion shown by the entire staff of the hospital, the doctors, the nurses, and of course, the lovely people who brought in the meals. And so, Mr. Speaker, I stand here to express my personal and everlasting gratitude to the men and women who helped our family. I don't think any of us can quite truly appreciate the national treasure we have that is our public health care system until we need it. Because of this system and the people who worked so hard to care for my wife, my family was able to celebrate and welcome the birth of our baby girl, Isla, 2 weeks ago. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Nepean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to talk about Bill 62, which was recently passed in the Quebec legislature. We know that diversity is one of our country's greatest strengths. Unfortunately, too often we are forced to repeat this statement. I share concerns that as those highlighted in the Ottawa Citizen by Suzanne Diorge and Fatia Warsam of City for All Women Initiative. We need to ensure that all rules across the whole country unite Canadians instead of creating an us and them. As the Prime Minister has said on numerous occasions, we do not believe that the government should be telling people what they can and cannot wear. Canadians rightfully expect that their government will take the necessary steps within its power to ensure that everyone's rights are protected under the Charter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 2017 marks a significant milestone for our country, for Canada. This year we celebrate our 150th anniversary since Confederation. And what better way to commemorate this occasion than to recognize the amazing contributions made to our country by outstanding Canadians who give of their time, their talent, and their resources in order to positively impact others and make our nation great. The Community Builders Volunteer Awards were created in order to recognize and celebrate the many volunteers in the Lethbridge riding who give back by going above and beyond day in and day out. On October 20th, I had the honor of recognizing and celebrating 18 amazing individuals, not-for-profit organizations, and businesses for their remarkable contributions to our community. The place I call home would not be the same without these individuals. Today, in the House of Commons, I take this moment to formally recognize and honor those women and men of my riding who were granted the Community Builders Volunteer Award. Thank you.
L'Honorable Député Gatineau.
Honourable Member for Gatineau. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the last few days, I've had the pleasure of announcing two exciting projects for Gatineau. First, we're going to start renovations on the Terrasse de la Chaudière complex, which is the federal government building where the most public servants work. And with the support of my colleague for Hull Aylmer, we're taking advantage of the opportunity to enhance the public spaces inside and outside of that complex for our community and for the 6,000 public servants who work there every day. This morning, I also announced the construction of a second complex for the Preservation Centre of Library and Archives Canada. This is a $400 million project that will create quality jobs and will help house some of our country's treasured historical artifacts. Mr. Speaker, the federal government is hard at work for Gatineau and to ensure that we are present in the Outaouais region and Quebec. The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, there are some initiatives that really deserve recognition. I had the great pleasure of presiding for the second consecutive year over the swearing-in ceremony for a government made up of 6th grade students at Jean Nicolet School in Montreal North. Under the leadership of their teacher, Caroline Francois, 20 students ran a campaign and elected 7 ministers to form a student government. During their campaign, they managed to convince their electors These young people learned about the democratic process and about managing group dynamics. And this inspiring initiative allowed them to be fully involved in school activities. I wish a successful term to these aspiring leaders, and I would like to congratulate the school officials who have been leading this activity in my riding of Bourassa for the last 8 years. Congratulations.
The honourable member for Huron-Bruce.
Mr. Speaker, the highlight this fall in Huron-Bruce was found in Walton, Ontario, playing host to 76,000 people for the 100th International Plowing Match. Thank you to Jack, Joe Ryan, the entire Ryan family, surrounding neighbors who made it such a great venue. Congratulations to Jackie Bishop on being named the first female chair of the plowing match in that 100-year history. Congratulations, Jackie. Thank you to the thousands of volunteers, the sponsors, exhibitors, musical entertainment, the County of Huron, Huron East, and all the surrounding municipalities. Special thank you to the Plowing Association. What a fantastic, great event, Mr. Speaker. We're proud of our rural roots in Huron-Bruce and southwestern Ontario. This was a fantastic plowing match, and I just want to sincerely thank all the people involved. What a tremendous show we put on.
The honourable member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, as we conclude Women's History Month, let us pay tribute to the trailblazing women who have shaped our country and way of life. Today, I would like to highlight some of the organizations and the women behind them in Brampton West that bring positive change for the women in our community. Lady Ballers Camp is an organization that develops girls-centered programs which encourages physical, emotional, and educational development. Led by Toyo Ajibalari, this camp has touched the lives of hundreds of young girls. HoC 24/7 is an organization that assists victims of sexual and domestic violence. Laura Zelny, the CEO of HoC 24/7, has been a tireless advocate in her pursuit of ensuring that these essential services are available for all women who are in need. I want to encourage young women across Canada to follow the footsteps of these inspiring women and claim your place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, congratulations to students for taking actions against poverty. The students at Confederation Secondary School in Valcarran have come together to collect funds to provide food, clothing, laundry services, and public transit to their peers. They surpassed their goal in one night by collecting over $3,900. Truly amazing. They call it secondaire.
For the 17th year in a row, students at Franco-Cité Secondary School collected a huge amount of money to benefit the local food bank. And other secondary students organized a Thanksgiving food drive and collected over 20,000 pounds of food to be distributed to the West Nipissing Food Bank.
To have fresh food on the table and clothing on their back. Merci au personnel enseignant.
Thank you to the teaching staff and the parents who supported these young people in their project.
And students for caring for the community. Miigwech, merci.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, today we welcome the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Vladimir Grossman, to Canada. This being his first visit to Canada, Prime Minister Grossman will be meeting with policymakers and business leaders to discuss and improve upon existing projects and new partnerships between Canada and Ukraine. Our previous Conservative government initiated many economic, diplomatic, and security agreements to the benefit of both our nations. The strong historical and cultural links between Ukraine and Canada were strengthened by Conservative initiatives such as the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement, the Bilateral Defence Cooperation Agreement, and more than $100 million in aid to promote economic growth, democracy, and humanitarian assistance. Canada still has much to offer Ukraine. Conservatives have called on the government to restore radar-sat imagery, to add Ukraine to the automatic firearms country control list, and provide them with the lethal defensive equipment they have requested. We continue to call on the Liberals to work with Prime Minister Grossman to continue Canada's legacy of unequivocal support for Ukraine.
The honourable member for Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, this past August 24th, Canadian soldiers marched in Ukraine's Independence Day parade, carrying the Canadian flag in downtown Kyiv. A clear message to Ukrainians that Canada and NATO stands with them during this time of Russian military invasion and daily aggressions. The liberal democratic West faces a global hybrid war against our foundational values and a rules-based international order. Ukraine's largely volunteer army is in a hot conflict in the Donbass, fighting Kremlin soldiers and proxies. Defending Ukraine's territorial integrity, these brave soldiers are a living shield for NATO and the West. Through Operation Unifier, Canada has trained 5,500 Ukrainian soldiers. Let us make sure these brave men and women are properly trained and equipped to deter further aggressions. Today on the Hill, we welcome Prime Minister Volodymyr Groysman, and we extend to him a heartfelt greeting of Slava Ukraini и Slava Kanadi.
The honourable member for Elmwood Transcona.
I rise today in solidarity with the Oromo people being persecuted by their own government in Ethiopia. Popular protests began in earnest against the government's master plan in November 2015. The plan seeks to dispossess Oromo people of their land in order to expand Ethiopia's capital city, Addis Ababa. The plan followed on the heels of a number of development projects which had already displaced many Oromo farmers over the past decade. The government has disregarded the Oromo people's right to peaceful assembly, using brutal force against its own people to quell protests across Oromia. The number of arbitrary arrests and untimely deaths continues to rise for Oromia's farmers, opposition politicians, academics, journalists, and students, among others. I urge the Canadian government to respond to this situation, voice Canada's concerns for the Oromo people in Ethiopia, and work with our allies in the international community to create consequences for the Ethiopian government's violation of its citizens' human rights.
The honourable member for Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the past few weeks, it's come to our attention that the Liberal government has been unfairly raising taxes on Canadians suffering from diabetes. I'm now hearing reports that the government is also targeting Canadians with mental health illnesses. Living with disease or disability is not easy. The government shouldn't be making it even more difficult by forcing these Canadians to pay even more to deal or treat with their various conditions. As the Shadow Minister for Youth, Sports and Persons with Disabilities, I want to make it absolutely clear to those suffering from disease or disabilities, the Conservative Party is listening to you and we are fighting on your behalf. We will not let this government turn their backs on you. We will not be silent. We will stand beside you and with you to undo these injustices.
The honourable member for Winnipeg South.
Mr. Speaker, this year's celebrations for Women's History Month have once again underscored the immense contribution of women and girls throughout our country's history. Each day this month, stories were shared of trailblazing women and girls who embody the spirit of this year's theme, Claim Your Place. Leurs histoires ont stimulé.
Their stories led to dynamic engagement and dialogue among Canadians. On October 11th, we celebrated the International Day of the Girl, reaffirming our leadership role in defending the rights of girls and gender equality on the international stage.
1 week later, Mr. Speaker, we honored Persons Day and the 5 women who fought tirelessly to have women legally recognized as persons in Canada. And as Women's History Month draws to a close, Mr. Speaker, let's channel this powerful momentum and rededicate our efforts to empowering women and girls here in Canada and around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions orales, oral questions. The honourable leader of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we know that the finance minister secretly managed his shares in Morneau Chapelle using a numbered company for 2 years. And he introduced legislation on pensions that would benefit him personally. Former House law clerk says that this was a huge error in judgment. Does the Prime Minister agree? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as is the case in almost all situations for ministers and members, the Finance Minister worked with the Ethics Commissioner and in order to ensure that everything was by the book. He also set up a screen to protect against any conflicts. The Leader of the Opposition did the same. So did the former Minister Denis Lebel, and many people on both sides of the House have done similar things. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Law Clerk of the House of Commons is astounded that the Finance Minister thought he was complying with the spirit of the Conflict of Interest Act by holding assets through numbered companies. And at the same time that he was introducing pension legislation, he owned a company whose business is pensions. The former law clerk says that the Finance Minister, quote, should have known better. Yeah. We agree completely, does the Prime Minister.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, everyone in this House works with the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner to ensure that their personal dispositions are in line with the rules in place. I can assure everyone that the Finance Minister followed that advice, and I am certain, absolutely certain, that the Leader of the Official Opposition also followed the advice of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner in accordance to his own personal tax dispositions.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The key difference here, Mr. Speaker, is that I disclosed everything to the Ethics Commissioner.
We're not talking about a backbencher. We're talking about the Finance Minister, one of the most important ministers in Cabinet. Mr. Speaker, when did the Prime Minister learn that the Finance Minister was involved in this conflict of interest? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we work with the Ethics Commissioner. We respect her decisions and her advice. But the fact is, it's not surprising to see the Conservatives attacking the Commissioner, because for 10 years in government, they attacked the Chief Electoral Officer, the Information Commissioner, the Privacy Commissioner. They eliminated positions in science. They continually attacked the institutions that preserve our democracy.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Just can't be trusted. He hid an offshore company from Canadians for 2 years. Yeah. He secretly managed his Morneau Chappelle stocks in an Alberta numbered company. Right. And he tabled legislation that could benefit him personally. Right. The Finance Minister still owns another 5 numbered companies that are unaccounted for. When will the Prime Minister order the Finance Minister to disclose what he's holding in those numbered companies?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, all Canadians, and indeed all members of office, know that the Finance Minister worked with the Ethics Commissioner and followed her advice. What is not surprising, Mr. Speaker, is to see the Conservatives yet again attacking the integrity and the work of an Officer of Parliament. For 10 years in government, they attacked the Information Commissioner, they attacked the Official Languages Commissioner, they attacked the Privacy Commissioner, they took potshots at Supreme Court justices, attacked Elections Canada every step of the way. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives need to respect the institutions that defend Parliament.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This Liberal government needs to respect Canadians who are demanding transparency. Would think that it's a petty attack to ask a Finance Minister who has responsibility to regulate and legislate the economy to disclose what he owns in his numbered corporations. This has nothing to do with the Conflict of Interest Commissioner herself. This has to do with the Finance Minister who has withheld information from Canadians. When will the Prime Minister order his Finance Minister to come clean? Here.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, it's all a bit rich coming from the Conservative Party who spent 10 years attacking and dismantling the institutions that protected our Parliament. They are the only government in the history...
Order. I would ask the honourable member for Chilliwack, Hope and others not to be heckling, not to be talking when someone else has the floor. Order. We don't call attention to the presence or absence of somebody. But I can assure members he did heckle. The Honourable Prime Minister, floor. Order.
Mr. Speaker, this Conservative Party is the only one in the history of the entire Parliament of Canada, to be held in contempt of Parliament as a sitting Prime Minister, as a sitting government. The members opposite have shown no respect for transparency and openness. That's why Canadians elected a better government 2 years ago. That's why we continue to raise the bar on transparency and openness despite their attacks.
Some folks disappear like a ghost on Halloween, it seems like.
The honourable member for Rimouski-Neigette-Témiscouata-les-Basques.
My problem with this defense, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that when Liberals campaigned, they said, vote for us, we're nothing like the Conservatives, and now they're saying, don't blame us, we're doing what they did before.
Yesterday, my colleague for Skeena-Bulkley Valley got a motion passed at committee to invite the Ethics Commissioner to appear and recommend changes to the Conflict of Interest Act in order to get rid of loopholes. The motion was passed last week. The Liberals voted against it. Everyone agrees the loophole is problematic. When is the Prime Minister going to exercise some common sense and get rid of it? The Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I respect the independence of committees, and I'm glad the committee in question will be studying the legislation governing conflicts of interest and the Ethics Commissioner. I think that's a good thing. It'll be good to hear what parliamentarians have to say about it. That's part of how this place works. We're always looking for ways to improve, but we on this side of the House have always shown openness, transparency, and respect for Canadians.
Edmonton Strathcona. Order.
Mr. Speaker, the fact is that multiple ministers are benefiting from a loophole in the Conflict of Interest Act, and the Ethics Commissioner has been calling for this loophole to be closed since 2013. For a government that held itself to such a high ethical standard, why is this Prime Minister refusing to do the right thing? Take the Ethics Commissioner's advice and close the loophole.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to say that this information has been available for a long time on the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner's website, where indeed 2 ministers had controlled assets held indirectly. The Finance Minister has announced that he is moving forward, going above and beyond what was originally asked. And in the case of the other minister, those assets were divested 18 months ago.
Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Speaker, confusing response. Try this one. Leading into next week's climate meeting in Bonn, the United Nations is raising concerns with the growing emissions cap. They've called for deeper action by all nations. The Environment Commission has reported that this government is failing to even meet Stephen Harper's targets. Whoa. Given the UN's concerns and reports that Canadian methane emissions may be double those forecast, will the Prime Minister commit today to more substantial cuts to our greenhouse gas emissions?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect leadership from this government that both builds and grows the economy while protecting the environment. Indeed, Canadians know that's the only way forward, where the Conservatives are very clear that they don't care about protecting the environment, and the economy suffered as a result, and the NDP don't particularly care about the economy at all, it seems, with their approach. What we have demonstrated is a responsible pan-Canadian framework and a real plan to reduce emissions, unlike any previous government of any political stripe in this country.
The honourable member for Rimouski-Neigette-Témiscouata-les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, the facts are there. Mr. Speaker, the Environment Commissioner confirmed it a few weeks ago in her report, and now the UN's Environment Chief is sounding the alarm over greenhouse gas reductions. The Liberals adopted the wishy-washy Stephen Harper targets, and clearly they won't even meet those targets by 2020, let alone the Paris targets. Canadians deserve a genuine plan to combat climate change. When is this government going to show us that plan? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, both the Conservatives and the NDP want to force a false choice on us between the environment and the economy. We Liberals and all Canadians know that these are not mutually exclusive. The only way to build a better future for our children and grandchildren is to protect both the environment and economic growth at the same time. That's why we're moving ahead with a plan, a Canada-wide plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, including carbon pricing, including protecting our oceans, including investing in the middle class and economic growth for everyone, because that's what Canadians want. The Honourable Member for Richmond, Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister for months went around calling small business owners, farmers, and everybody who creates jobs in our regions tax cheats under his tax reform. Today we learn the Finance Minister himself found loopholes that he is exploiting for his own personal gain. In order to facilitate the Ethics Commissioner's current investigation of the Finance Minister, could he tell us what assets he's hiding in numbered company 2254165? The Honourable Finance Minister.
All of my assets have been fully disclosed to the Ethics Commissioner. That is absolutely clear, and saying it many times won't actually change the fact. The question for me, though, is for the 21 members on the other side of the House who have private corporations, whether they've in fact taken the same approach. For example, whether the member from Chatham-Kent, for example, has disclosed what's in 782-615 Ontario Incorporated, or what's in 241-2420 Ontario Incorporated, or for example, whether the member from Niagara Falls has disclosed what's in 115.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Athabasca. Order. Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you the difference between members on this side of the House and the Finance Minister. 1, on our side, no one hid a villa in France. 2, no one took 2 years to disclose a scandalous situation involving their assets. 3rd, no one benefited personally. So back to the main question. Can the Finance Minister tell us what he's hiding in numbered company 2070689 and 2254165? The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I said, I have been working with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that she knows exactly what my personal situation is, and in light of that, she gave me some recommendations about how to handle a situation to avoid a conflict of interest. That's very important. But, Mr. Speaker, there is a reason why members opposite are interested in my situation. It's because they know They know it's important to continue the discussion about Canadians' financial position. That's what's important.
The Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, as Executive Chairman of Morneau Chapelle, the Minister of Finance advocated for policies that he later implemented when he became the Minister of Finance. Only when he got caught did these policies that benefited his shares come to light. Only when he got caught did he meet the Ethics Commissioner. Only when he got caught did he agree to sell his shares because of the conflict. If the minister won't disclose the contents of his other mysteriously numbered companies, maybe he can tell us what's in 1446977 Ontario East, so we know that he's not in conflict yet again.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as I've confirmed to this House before, I've reported all of my assets to the Ethics Commissioner. 100% of my assets. I hold no controlled assets whatsoever in any of my holdings or the holdings of my family. What I can say, Mr. Speaker, is rather than focusing on my finances, it would be nice if the members opposite were focused on the finances of Canadians. That's what we're focused on. We are focused, for the member from Milton, we're focused on her constituents and the situation that they have, helping them with an increase with the Canada Child Benefit, for example, helping them with an increase in the working income tax benefit, so they're better off.
Order. I don't think the House needs to hear from members who haven't got the floor on a constant basis when someone is asking or answering a question. So I'd ask members to try to restrain themselves. The Honourable Member for Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what we did this summer when we brought to light the fact that small businesses in Canada and their owners were being called tax cheats by this Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, for 2 full years, this minister drove the economic policy that benefited not only his personal wealth, but also the wealth of his friends and his family. Who knows how many other policies that this minister was part of and implemented that directly benefit his holdings? When will the minister quit his game of hide-and-seek, come clean and tell this House what are the contents of numbered companies 1446977 and 2135042?
What are you hiding? Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, what do we know right now? We know that 21 members on the other side of the House.
Order. Most members in all parties are able to sit through a question period without reacting to things I don't like to hear. And that's bound to happen around here. So members I know can behave in a restrained manner, can control themselves, and so I encourage them to do so. The Honourable Minister of Finance has the floor.
What we know is that 21 members on the other side of the House have private corporations. We also know that the members on the other side of the House argued vociferously against the changes that we wanted to make sure that our tax system was fair. So while we were working on behalf of Canadians, working to make sure that we could lower small business rates on small businesses across this country, they were focused on the advantages that 1.7% of those privately incorporated individuals might have. While they protect their interests, we will protect the interests of Canadians.
I've asked members a few times. Order. Order. I know members would sooner be trick-or-treating, but we need to get on with things. Order. The honourable member for Carleton.
The minister wants to know what's in my company. I'm one of the 21 he just listed. It's a rental property.
Hey,
how hard was that? What is in 2254165 Ontario Inc.?
I know members want to hear another question, probably from the same member, so they'll want to be quiet so that we hear the answer to that question if they want to hear the next one. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, all of my assets are disclosed and none of my assets are controlled assets. It's important to make sure that we disclose everything to the Ethics Commission. And what I would like to know, again, as I said, whether that is actually happening on the other side of the House. Whether the member from Calgary Rocky Ridge has disclosed everything in 638484 Alberta Limited, or whether the member from Fort McMurray has disclosed everything in 615783 Alberta Limited at DDK Holdings. These are questions that are quite interesting. But I will say, for me, what's more important is that we actually think about what's going on for the constituents in those ridings, whether they are actually seeing the advantages that we're trying.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
While the minister was speaking, I had an opportunity to confirm with the 21 members in the caucus to which he referred, and they have all confirmed that none of them own stocks in a company that they regulate. Only has that distinction. So can he just tell us what is he holding in 2254165 Ontario Inc.?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I can only assume that the continuing obsession with my personal finances is because the members on the opposite side don't want to think about what's actually happening for their own constituents. Because if they went out and knocked on doors, what they would find out is that 450,000 plus people have jobs that didn't have jobs 2 years ago. They'd find that we have the lowest rate of unemployment in a decade. They'd find that our economy is doing well. The people in their ridings are actually finding themselves in a better situation for them and their families. That's what we're going to continue to focus on, Mr. Speaker. That's what we were elected to do.
The honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
We now know that Netflix is not the only digital giant from Silicon Valley getting special treatment. Google, 37 meetings. Microsoft, 35 meetings. Amazon, almost 100. Microsoft hired a former Liberal Party director, and worse, the Heritage Minister's own Chief of Staff used to work for Google. Not only is the Canadian industry playing by a different set of rules, where's their FaceTime with the minister? Simple question. When will the minister get to work for Canadian companies instead of just American ones?
Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, we have the chance to have great creators in this country, and we need to stand for them. While Canadians have access to these platforms, and they are part of our everyday lives, we need to be able to present the point of view of creators when discussing with these platforms, and that's exactly what we did. That being said, I must tell my colleague that we had the chance to meet with artists across the country, hear from 30,000 Canadians, and we've had more meetings with the Writers Guild, with the CMPA, with CIMA, and in generally with ACTRA than any other platforms. Thank you.
The honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, there's a veritable hotbed of lobbying financed by Silicon Valley's multinational corporations. With Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Netflix, we can see why the Heritage Minister keeps talking about a business model for our culture, and why she has no time to reply to the Quebec Minister of Culture, who's been calling and waiting for a month for her to reply. It's pathetic. Microsoft hired a former Liberal Party director, and the Heritage Minister hired a former Google exec as Chief of Staff. The Honourable Heritage Minister. Mr. Speaker, my colleague is referring to a coalition, and I had the opportunity to meet with them multiple times, as well as with other stakeholders, and even last Sunday, where I was at the DISC Gala with my colleague. I met with industry stakeholders there, but it's important to go ahead with a digital reform, because instead of burying our heads in the sand, we have digital platforms that are part of our everyday lives, and it's part of our job to consult our creators and on the evolution of these platforms. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the Ethics Commissioner is raising new concerns about the Finance Minister's conflict of interest, and Canadians have lost confidence in him. It's because he hid his Morneau Shapelle shares in a numbered company in Alberta, and he failed to disclose his offshore corporation in France. And Canadians are wondering just how many more assets and then how many more conflicts of interest is he hiding in his other numbered companies. So I ask the Finance Minister, what assets is he hiding in 225-4165 Ontario Incorporated?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I can do this bingo game too. So 615-783 Alberta, 782-615 Ontario, 114-9976 Ontario. Or, Mr. Speaker, I could actually focus on the important numbers. 300,000 children lifted out of poverty. 9% small business tax rate as opposed to 11% when the previous members were in power. Or maybe we could think about the fact that we've got 450,000 new jobs. Or perhaps the 3.7% in growth in the economy over the last year. These are the kind of numbers that matter, Mr. Speaker. They're the numbers that matter to Canadians.
Honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, it's shocking that the Finance Minister cannot see the difference between a Member of Parliament and a Member of Cabinet who owned pension shares and advocated for and introduced Bill C-27, which was pension reform legislation. It's a completely different story. He's the one in the conflict of interest. No one on this side has introduced legislation that puts us in a conflict of interest. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Finance Minister come clean, tell Canadians what what else he's hiding in 2070-689 Ontario Limited.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, what's really shocking is that the members opposite don't really understand how it works in this country. What we do is we have an approach to
Order. 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 I'm sure members understand that they need to hear the answers, and that I need to hear the answers. And we need some order. The Honourable Minister of Finance has the floor. Order. Order.
For the 338 members of this House, for the ministers of this government, for the ministers of the previous government, for the ministers of the governments before that, we work with the Ethics Commissioner to disclose all of our assets, as I've done. We get recommendations from the Ethics Commissioner on how we can ensure that we don't have conflicts of interest, which I did. And then we follow the recommendations of the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that we actually execute on an ongoing basis without conflicts of interest, which is what I did. That's
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent.
No, our government works.
That's right.
And so this is why we are in deep problem now. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, do you know why Canadians are interested in knowing what the finance minister's assets are? Because it's the finance minister. He's the finance minister. That's all there is to it. He's at the center of all tax measures. Every time he makes a decision, he's in a conflict of interest when he still owns these shares, and he has companies that we don't know what holdings they have. Could he tell us what's in company 1446977 Ontario Inc.? The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I said, I will continue to appreciate important numbers important to Canadians, like the fact that 300,000 children have been lifted out of poverty, like the fact that our economic growth rate is the highest in the G7, like the fact that our unemployment rate is lower than it's been in a decade. Those are the numbers that are important to Canadians and to us as a government. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. This government has posted a deficit that's twice as big as what they promised in the election campaign. This minister was caught red-handed. That's what he did with his shares and his private companies, and that's what he's doing now with his numbered company. So another question, Mr. Speaker. Could the finance minister tell us what he's got in numbered company 2135042 Ontario Inc.? The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, the same question gets the same answer. It's very important to us to think about how to improve Canadians' situations. That's our goal. It's a very important goal. Luckily for Canadians, we're in a very good economic situation. We have explained that we now have the highest economic growth rate in a decade. We have the lowest unemployment rate in a decade. It's very important to us right now and for the future of our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
As this government lobbies the Senate to pass Bill S3, Indigenous women and the Feminist Alliance are calling again on the Liberals to accept a Senate amendment to end all sex discrimination. This amendment, similar to one proposed by my NDP colleague, but voted down by the Liberals on National Indigenous Peoples Day, of all days, would fully remove sex discrimination from the Indian Act. Now, why wouldn't the feminist Prime Minister, whose most important relationship is with Indigenous peoples, remove all sex discrimination from the Indian Act?
Yeah. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is committed to ensuring gender equity for all women in Canada. We are committed to ensuring that adequate time for a meaningful debate of Bill S3 particularly in the context of the new court deadline of December 22nd. Our government is committed to working with First Nations communities, impacted individuals, experts, and parliamentarians to remove all sex discrimination from registration provisions within the Indian Act.
The honourable member for Timmins, James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, legal discrimination against women is unacceptable in 2017 unless apparently they're Indigenous women, because colonial Ottawa still maintains the power to decide who has Indigenous rights in this country, and they've disenfranchised thousands of women. So now the courts have ordered a remedy, and what a sight. Our feminist Prime Minister saying he needs more time to consult. Come on, they've had 150 years of time to obstruct the rights of Indigenous women. Time's up. Will the Prime Minister amend Bill S3 and end sex discrimination against Indigenous women once and for all? Yes or no?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as the member opposite knows, we are the first government ever in the history of Canada to make all efforts possible to eliminate sex discrimination for women within the Indian Act. That is our intention, that is our commitment, and we are working with First Nations, with individuals, with Canadians to ensure that we remove all sex discrimination from the registration provisions of the Indian Act, and that is a commitment that we stand by as a government.
Honourable member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have watched in horror as hundreds of thousands of Rohingya people have been forced from their homes and murdered in Myanmar over recent months in what is being described as ethnic cleansing.
Last week, the government announced major initiatives to help end the violence in the region. Can the Minister of International Development give us an update on additional measures being taken that will help Canadians help the Rohingya people? The Honourable Minister of International Development.
My colleague from Scarborough Rouge Park for his involvement in this important issue. Our government remains deeply concerned by the crimes against humanity committed against the Rohingya. That is why I just launched the Myanmar Crisis Relief Fund, a matching fund.
For every dollar donated by Canadians by the 28th of November, the government will provide an equal amount to support the efforts of our humanitarian partners on the ground. And I would invite all Canadians to be generous and to go on to the website MyanmarCrisisCanada.ca.
Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister continues to insist that she's made no changes to the policies that govern the disability tax credit. Of course, we have letters that prove that's not right. But the most convincing proof is that 80% of those with type 1 diabetes that used to be approved for the credit are now being denied. Who told the Minister to raise taxes on those suffering from type 1 diabetes?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, no changes were made to the eligibility criteria for disability tax credits and for diabetics. The concerns raised by groups are important ones, but I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that for 10 years, the previous Conservative government cut in scientific research. Our government invested $41 million in diabetes research, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to work with our partners in order to make sure that diabetes disappears from Canada one day.
Sarnia-Lambton, order.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we know that we've seen the new documents, and 80% of applicants for the disability tax credit were approved before May of this year, and now that same 80% that were approved are being denied. The Revenue Minister continues to say that Canadians will get the disability tax credits they deserve. So my question is, does she think that people with type 1 diabetes deserve the disability tax credit? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Revenue. Mr. Speaker, I will repeat once again that no changes were made to the eligibility criteria for the disability tax credit. The criteria are the same. People receive credits and benefits that they are entitled to. We are working with our partners We have invested in research, $41 million. We have simplified the forms for the disability tax credit. We have hired clinical nurses. The work is being done, Mr. Speaker, just like the people have asked us to do.
Monsieur le Président, contrairement à ce qu'a dit le ministre des Finances plus tôt, on sait très bien comment le gouvernement libéral fonctionne. La ministre du Revenu national doit trouver de l'argent pour payer les déficits des libéraux. Malheureusement pour les Canadiens, elle prend son mandat au cœur. Elle a choisi de prendre l'argent dans ses poches.
Apparently we didn't hear the interpretation, so perhaps people can tell me if it's working. It's working. Fine. Go ahead, the Honourable Member from Mégantic-Larame. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, contrary to what the Minister of Finance said earlier, we know perfectly well how the Liberal government works. The Minister of Revenue has to find money to pay down the government's out-of-control deficits, and unfortunately for Canadians, she takes her mandate to heart. She chose to take money out of the pocket of the most vulnerable, those suffering from diabetes, mental illness, and other disabilities. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, rather than defend ministers who hide their family fortune, just like in a Dynasty episode, we will always stand up for the most vulnerable of our society. What side is the minister on? Will she, yes or no, put an end to this attack on the most vulnerable? The Minister of National Revenue. I am very proud, as a former social worker, to be able to say that I have always stood up for the weakest and the most underprivileged. Mr. Speaker, I have good news for my colleagues opposite. Total approvals for tax credits for mental health tax credits have achieved record numbers and did so last year. We provided tax credits. We make mental health support more accessible. We have simplified the forms. We have hired clinical nurses. We are working with our partners. That's what we promised to do, and that's what we'll continue to do.
For Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Well, Mr. Speaker, yesterday in question period, the Revenue Minister continued to pat herself on the back by saying our government is fully committed to ensuring that everyone receives the tax credits to which they're entitled. Well, these words are cold comfort for those that suffer from type 1 diabetes, mental illness, or autism who are suddenly being denied disability tax credits, all because these Liberals need more money to fund their out-of-control spending. Is denying the disability tax credit on a massive scale this minister's idea of ensuring that all Canadians get tax credits to which they're entitled?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, all Canadians must receive tax credits they are entitled to, and I would invite my colleagues opposite to stop misleading the public. We invested in research for diabetes, $41 million. We invested in mental health, $5 billion, Mr. Speaker. That will reach 500,000 young people aged 25 years or less. We've simplified the application forms. We've hired clinical nurses, Mr. Speaker. We're working with our partners, and we'll continue to do so, just as we promised.
For Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, reports from the Globe and Mail state this government is failing to track workplace fatalities in Canada. It is critical that the Liberals lead in collecting data to support evidence-based interventions in dangerous work to protect Canadian workers. Does the government know how many worker fatalities there have been in Canada this year? Of course not, because they don't have the information. Will the Liberal government work with us, take leadership, and collect data to keep Canadian workers safe and alive?
Honourable Minister of Employment and Labour.
Mr. Speaker, we agree with the member opposite that it's tragic whenever a worker loses their life in the workplace. And that's why we're taking action to make sure that the health and safety of workers, Canadian workers, is first and foremost in what we do. Everyone has the right to a safe workplace, a healthy working environment. In Budget 2017, we announced new compliance and enforcement tools that include new administrative monetary penalties and the authority to publicly name violators. And we're also currently working with provinces and territories to harmonize occupational health and safety regulations. We agree data is important. We'll move forward. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Chambly. Mr. Speaker, after the troubling revelations of harassment within CSIS, it is now the turn of Correctional Services Canada to be at the centre of a scandal in the Edmonton prison. The assaults and threats suffered by correctional officers are unacceptable.
CSC has suspended the offending individuals, but my question to the Minister is this. Can he ensure us that such behaviour is not happening in other federal establishments, and will he undertake investigations to make absolutely certain that it isn't?
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable gentleman knows, the situation at the Edmonton institution is under investigation by a number of agencies, including the police, and accordingly the commentary with respect to that particular situation needs to be careful to avoid any interference with the investigation. But I want to assure him absolutely that the concern that he has expressed is shared by the government, and I have asked the Commissioner of the Correctional Service to ensure that this problem is contained and goes no further.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Canada's immigration system should be compassionate, safe and fair, but this Prime Minister ignored for months the desperate pleas of genocide survivors. He has no plan to support the integration of tens of thousands of refugees. He's refused to close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement, instead prioritizing those who've entered Canada illegally. He's also created massive wait times for everyone else who's trying to enter Canada by playing by the rules. How can the Prime Minister bring in 300,000 more people while having no plan to fix the mess that he's created?
Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of a mess that is being created, the party opposite brought a grand total of 3 Yazidi refugees out of genocide. We have brought almost 800 survivors of Daesh to Canada. Mr. Speaker, the party opposite gutted settlement services for newcomers. We are investing more than $1 billion in settlement services, Mr. Speaker. The party opposite gutted health care for refugees, the most vulnerable people in the world. Mr. Speaker, we will take no...
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Doesn't know its history. This government often forgets that immigration isn't about numbers, it's about people. Last week, I met with Mirabel. She entered Canada.
Order. This time I need to hear the question. Order. The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, last week I met with Mirabel, and she's watching this today. She entered Canada as a live-in caregiver and has played by the rules. And all she knows is that every time this Prime Minister prioritizes a person who has illegally crossed the border, her application to bring her kids here seems to drop to the bottom of the list. And that is not fair. So is the Prime Minister going to fix a system that he broke, or is he going to continue to let Mirabel and everyone else like her pay for his arrogance?
Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I am so happy that the member opposite has finally found a priority in reducing backlogs. We inherited a system under that party where we were waiting for 24 months for citizenship. We cut that down to 12 months. Under their party, when they were in power, spouses were taking 48 months to be reunited. We now have a new standard of 12 months. We eliminated 20,000 cases from the spousal backlog. That means 20,000 spouses are now reunited because of our efforts. I'm so proud that she has finally joined us in enthusiastically embracing and reducing.
The honourable member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the minister is wrong to attack my colleague. There are illegal asylum seekers crossing the Quebec border, but their resources have been cut on the front lines, and so the border agents have no time to do their work. The government is going to be bringing 300 new Canadians, yes, but what are they going to do to help our border officials?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, we faced an extraordinary situation in the summer, but I'm proud of the fact that our agencies responded. We were able to move around resources to make sure that we respond to the pressure points. We made sure that we dramatically improved processing times for work permits so that asylum seekers can support themselves and eliminate pressure on provincial health and social programs. We have established a task force to make sure that we collaborate across all levels of government. Our response has been efficient and making sure that we move forward together. Thank you.
Member for Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, as tomorrow begins a month-long awareness campaign on the impacts of diabetes on Canadians, I stand in this House today to acknowledge and recognize the profound impact this disease has on patients and their families. In addition to supporting programs which prevent diabetes, including healthy eating and physical activity, can the Minister of Health please inform us how our government is supporting the researchers who are tirelessly working to find new treatments and hopefully a cure for this disease?
Great question. Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my honourable colleague from Brampton South for her question and for her tireless advocacy on this issue as she chairs the All-Party Caucus on Diabetes. Our government recognizes the impact that diabetes has on the health of patients, and that is why we are making investments in research, prevention, and early detection of diabetes. In 2015-2016 alone, the Canadian Institute for Health Research invested over $41 million in diabetes research. Tomorrow is the beginning of Diabetes Awareness Month, and we will continue to work hard to support people living with diabetes.
Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, she should be restoring the tax credit for diabetics. Mr. Speaker, this past Friday in Abbotsford, within a 10-hour period, 10 hours, 5 different residents died of opioid overdoses. And this kind of tragedy is playing out in hundreds of communities across our country. Yet the federal government's silence on this health crisis has been deafening. No response, no strategy, no plan. No emergency. When will the minister wake up and realize Canadians are dying on her watch? When will she act?
Yeah. Honourable Minister of Health.
Recognizes that we are in a public health crisis, and we're responding in a way that's comprehensive, collaborative, compassionate, and also evidence-based. We recently announced $7.5 million that will enhance the development of evidence-based practices that can be used by those dealing with the crisis on the ground. This builds on our investment in Budget 2017 and many actions to date. We will continue to bring forward evidence-based solutions to help save lives and turn the tide of this national public health crisis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate opted out of the Phoenix pay system to find another service provider. But trying to fix the Phoenix boondoggle with even more contracting out is like the Prime Minister trying to fix his government's lack of vision by putting on fake glasses. And this government will fail to meet collective bargaining deadlines because of Phoenix. Rather than spooking our struggling senators and delaying collective bargaining with actual public servants, will the Liberal government rebuild a publicly administered payroll system for all federal employees?
Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me assure everyone that resolving this issue is my top priority. People deserve to be paid properly and on time. When the previous government irresponsibly treated pay modernization as a cost-cutting measure instead of the complex, enterprise-wide business transformation that it was, it set the project up to fail and exposed it to enormous risk. Mr. Speaker, we are taking the steps that the previous government did not take. We are improving governance, putting in place business processes and training, addressing technological challenges, providing emergency support to workers, and working with partners, in particular public sector unions. Well, we didn't create this problem, Mr. Speaker. We are fixing it.
The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Order, please. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was very pleased to learn that our government will be increasing funding for the Athlete Assistance Program. This is especially important as we have 100 days to go before the Olympic Games and 128 days before the Pyeongchang Paralympic Games in South Korea, where we hope our athletes will be the best they can be. What can the minister tell us about how increasing this program will have an impact on our elite Canadian athletes, like many athletes in Laurentides-Labelle? The Honourable Minister.
I would like to thank the member from Laurentides-Labelle for his question. Our government is committed to seeing our carded athletes succeed at the highest level. That's why I'm very pleased that we are investing $25 million over the next 5 years in our athletes. This will allow us to put $265 more a month in these athletes' pockets. This will allow them to pay for rent and food so they can concentrate on their athletics. This is their first raise in 14 long years. Our government is committed to seeing them succeed in Pyeongchang and beyond. We're committed to our athletes.
The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are always rolling out the red carpet for foreign lobbyists who continue to influence this government's decisions and disregard the interests of our homegrown businesses. 99 meetings with Amazon, 37 with Google, 16 with Netflix, when we know that these companies are insisting on changes to our copyright and our broadcasting legislation. We're starting to wonder if the Minister of Heritage is simply the puppet of American internet giants. Why is it that the minister is letting American businesses rewrite our laws? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, rather than avoid the problem like the previous government did, we decided to be proactive and deal with this issue, protect our culture, promote our culture in a digital age. And that's why it's important to be able to listen to the point of view of our artists and our creators about digital platforms so that our culture can flourish on these platforms. I would also like to tell my colleague that contrary to the previous government, we are also meeting many stakeholders of the cultural sector. We have discussions with them. We have had discussions with dozens of stakeholders in this sector.
Je ne sais pas comment on fait pour protéger notre culture sans garantie pour le contenu francophone, mais bon. Monsieur le Président, le ministre des Finances dépose un projet de loi sur les régimes de retraite alors que son entreprise gère des régimes de retraite.
Unfortunately, we cannot hear. Please, can we hear the interpretation? It's now working. I'd ask the member to start over. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance tabled a pension bill, even though his company manages pension funds. Morneau Chappelle manages Bombardier's pension fund, but still negotiates a $372 million loan. The same minister tabled tax reforms that will make taxes higher for businesses, but included a grandfather clause for himself. Something is not working. If the minister lacks the necessary judgment to withdraw from discussions when his own personal interests are at stake, he should simply withdraw from the cabinet. The Honourable Minister of Economic Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Unfortunately, I do not agree with my colleague.
The aerospace sector will continue to engage with Bombardier, Mr. Speaker, and the suppliers. This is so important to our economy, Mr. Speaker. We'll make sure that we invest in research and development. We'll make sure we defend the sector when it's being attacked by companies in the U.S., Mr. Speaker, and we'll continue to support the workers in the aerospace sector.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, what we have here is the same old sponsorship party, the same old liberal culture where everything is possible, everything is permitted. Every answer this government gives the public makes them a little more cynical, and it just sickens the whole world of politics. We need a new Gomery Commission. Will someone in this government acknowledge that being a shareholder in a human resources company like Morneau Chappelle and tabling a bill on pension funds is called a conflict of interest? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I worked with the Ethics Commission in order to make sure that there was no conflict of interest. I think it's important for Canadians to be able to retire with dignity. That is very important. It's a very important goal for us, and that's why we have improved our retirement system for all Canadians. That is why we enhanced the guaranteed income supplement for seniors. We will continue to improve the lives of seniors in our society. That is an important goal for us.
Comme il est 15h10.
It being 3:10 p.m., pursuant to an order adopted previously, the House will now proceed to the deferred recorded division on Bill C-46 at third reading stage. Call in the members.
La question est la suivante.
The question is as follows. Ms. Wilson-Raybould, seconded by Mr. Baines, moved that Bill C-46, an act to amend the Criminal Code, offences relating to conveyances, and to make consequential amendments to other acts, be now read a third time and do pass. All those in favour of the motion will please rise.
Monsieur Trudeau.
Monsieur Trudeau.
Mr. Hare.
Mr. Hare.
Mr. O'Regan.
Mr. O'Regan.
Mr. Sajjan.
Mr. Sajjan.
Ms. Petitpas-Taylor.
Ms. Petitpas-Taylor.
Mr. Goodale.
Mr. Goodale.
Madame Joly.
Madame Joly.
Monsieur Champagne.
Monsieur Champagne.
Ms. Freeland.
Ms. Freeland.
Monsieur Leblanc.
Monsieur Leblanc.
Ms. Chager.
Ms. Chager.
Ms. Qualtrough.
Ms. Qualtrough.
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Bryson.
Mr. Bryson.
Ms. Wilson-Raybould.
Ms. Wilson-Raybould.
Mr. Macaulay-Cardigan.
Mr. Macaulay-Cardigan.
Madame Le Boutillier.
Madame Le Boutillier.
Madame Bibeau.
Madame Bibeau.
Mr. Hussain.
Mr. Hussain.
Ms. McKenna.
Ms. McKenna.
Mr. Baines.
Mr. Baines.
Ms. Haidu.
Ms. Haidu.
Mrs. Philpott.
Mrs. Philpott.
Ms. Mahichuk.
Ms. Mahichuk.
Mr. Casey Cumberland-Colchester.
Mr. Casey Cumberland-Colchester.
Mr. Easter.
Mr. Easter.
Ms. Fry.
Ms. Fry.
Mr. McKay.
Mr. McKay.
Mr. Knoll.
Mr. Nault.